Hello, and welcome to episode 8 of African Battle Royale. We're getting close to the end. There's a lot fewer countries now than there started with, although I think we still have a majority of the countries left. But with that, let's get right into it. Comoros, so I guess those weren't the only two island nations left. And I was wrong when I said Morocco was the only country who hadn't done anything. I forgot Comoros was in it. I thought they were out. We'll be invading north. Comoros is like right here, so we'll just skip everything and say they get annexed into Tanzania. Ethiopia. We'll be making an alliance with Sudan. And I know that I've previously said that I don't want countries to be joining alliances without them being ruled, but I'm sort of starting to go back and more towards the story aspect. Asian Battle Royale exists, so obviously. And in this case, I'm going to lean into what I've been saying. And so in this case, the Brown Alliance will be made not just between Ethiopia and Sudan, although obviously they can be the founding members, but Egypt and the CAR will also be joining it. Zambia will be uniting north. So Zambia and Congo have had pretty good relations for a really long time, and they've been working towards uniting for a really long time because both of them want to expand, and that's the best thing for both of their expansion, especially Zambia. But they're actually going to do the same type of thing that Somalia and Tanzania did. And so you can't really tell, but now what used to be a black line is a gray line, because they still are divided within the bigger country. Cameroon will be invading east. And although Cameroon is the first country to invade into the new union that just came into existence, it's not going to be the only country, as their entire alliance will basically declare that this new union is very bad for the world and cannot continue to exist. And Tanzania will start sending troops into the union. They call these peacekeeping troops, but obviously that's not really the reason they're there. Unfortunately for the union, Zambia is really weak, and Congo hasn't had time to integrate their logistics with Zambia, which means they can't really move their troops through Zambia very well. So this war is going to involve Zambia basically just getting run over before Congo can sort of step up to help them. Eswatini will also join in against Zambia. They have never really liked Zambia, and they want the chance to get some land. But you might notice Eswatini is in the Berry Alliance, which means that their friends Gabon and Equatorial Guinea had also been planning to join in on this war. They just wanted Eswatini to join in first. And so they will also start invading into Congo. And now that Congo is actually also facing a simultaneous threat, it is not going well for the new union, let's put it that way. However, something is about to happen that's going to basically determine the outcome of the war, because the Brown Alliance is going to join against the Dark Blue Alliance, invading into them, and pretty quickly capturing the Horn of Africa as they start invading into the more important Somali territory, as Tanzania is forced to redirect some of their forces from Zambia all the way up to help with this. They are able to actually start invading into Ethiopia, which is really embarrassing for Ethiopia, but what's not embarrassing is that the CAR is helping Congo to push way back into Cameroon. And the Berry Alliance is suffering in the west, although Lesotho is still, or not Lesotho, this is Eswatini, is still doing really well in the south, basically crushing Zambia. Eswatini will join them in basically just destroying the south of the light blue country. This might actually be one of the most complicated wars I've ever done, because there's even more things that are about to happen. So, first of all, Somalia is continuing to lose out. That's not one of the complicated things. They're just suffering. The front line with Ethiopia is slowly going back in Ethiopia's favor as Uganda gets invaded for the first time in a while. And all eyes are looking to Rwanda, because whichever side they join will have a massive advantage. And as much as Rwanda is expansionist, they realize that expanding to the east is not going to do them as well as expanding into all this vast land that's way easier to control. And so they opt to join the Dark Blue Alliance. It also might have something to do with the fact that their ally is going to get completely overrun immediately if they joined the other alliance. And with Rwanda joining into the war, and basically they were ready for this war before they joined in. They had been getting ready for a while. The course of the war will once again change, as although Cameroon has now, by this point, basically been fully taken out, as well as Gabon and Equatorial Guinea, deleting the Western Front. The new Rwandan front is basically making the front line twice as long in the east, which more than compensates for the Western front line, which was relatively easy being gone. To add insult to injury, new reinforcements are finally arriving from West Africa that help Somalia recapture Mogadishu as well as just large portions of their territory. Rwanda is also invading into the CAR, and they managed to capture the CAR's capital once again, because that's just something that happens to it. And they establish a government in the CAR that's loyal to Rwanda, which is fun. So obviously Egypt and their allies will invade. The CAR hasn't been a non-puppet state for a really long time. They kind of don't even know what it means to be a non-puppet state anymore. But Somalia is still suffering. It turns out those reinforcements weren't enough to keep the lands that they gained. However, in the southern front, things are going completely differently, as a massive encirclement just happened that lost a staggering amount of Zambian troops. And Zambia at this point kind of wants to leave the Union and just surrender, but Congo isn't letting that happen since they're mostly winning the war. They start invading into the Rwandan-backed CAR government and establish a new government. But they refuse to bring in the old Egyptian government. They basically set up like a relatively democratic non-puppet government, but they oversee the elections. So it's not a puppet government, but it also kind of is. And this basically splits up the brown and light blue alliances, which is going to maybe be the beginning of the end, as Egypt decides to try and re-invade to reset up their own puppet state. And they're actually doing really well in taking out Rwanda. Rwanda's getting invaded into for the first time in a long time. And now that Egypt has most of the CAR, they reestablish their own puppet state. And it seems the Dark Blue Alliance is pretty much collapsing. However, in the south, some Eswatini troops managed to reach all the way to the Atlantic Ocean, essentially by using help from Botswana, who officially joins in on the war at this point. And they start invading north, which is why Congo finally has to pay attention to this front. And when they start doing so, they start winning. And although the brown and light blue alliances don't like each other anymore, they're still going to work with each other because they kind of have to. As a naval invasion is attempted into Togo, and it cuts Togo off from the coast, which is going to make it extremely difficult for the Dark Blue Alliance's allies to help them out. And this is going to make it even worse for Rwanda as they start actually losing their territory now. They get fully pushed out of Congo and start getting invaded into by Congo. However, all is not lost because one last push into Somalia recaptures the coast, and a horrible move on the part of an Ethiopian general to stay while they're getting encircled leads to them getting encircled and basically them all dying. But also, war plans are discovered, and they realize that the best strategy for them is to actually land in Sudan. And so that's exactly what they do. They land in Sudan. Obviously, a lot of naval fights happened to make that happen. But as soon as this happens, a lot of Sudanese rebels start popping up against the Sudanese government. And this is a guerrilla war that'll basically take Sudan out of the war entirely. Meanwhile, in the south, Botswana is very barely able to hold on. But still, they are holding on. As Madagascar lands troops in Eswatini. And this will distract Eswatini, and that is kind of the final straw for the entire war, is Madagascar getting involved, because the southern front starts to fall, and Botswana will leave, being the first country to leave the war, followed by Lesotho, and shortly thereafter by Eswatini. And without having to focus on that front, they're able to put all their energy into attacking the east. However, everything's not going perfectly well for Congo because Togo just took out this, and Nigeria just joined The Dark Blue Alliance, they want some Egyptian land, and they are invading, and they are fresh. Basically, no one else in this war is fresh anymore. At this point, the idea of there being a state in the CAR is kind of laughable, so I'm just going to erase them. They don't really have a state. Same with Sudan, to be honest. So really, this war is just kind of destroying everything. Rwanda is finally starting to be able to fight back, though, as they just absolutely punch everything they have into Congo and do really well before they get stuck. And then they start invading north. Somalia finally takes all their territory back and starts invading into Ethiopia, after which finally peace can be negotiated. So these are the new borders of Africa. So Zambia and Congo had to split up, but Congo got to annex the Berry Alliance. The Berry Alliance over here lost most of their land to Madagascar. Tanzania, Somalia didn't lose or gain any land. They kind of kept their borders. Rwanda gained a bunch of land. Nigeria gained some land from Egypt. Overall, this was a relatively calm peace treaty. As you can see, the CAR doesn't really have a government anymore, but Sudan managed to get its government reestablished after the guerrillas were fought off with the help of the Dark Blue Alliance. That was part of the stipulations of the treaty. They caused the guerrillas, they had to end them. And so, yeah, so thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.